And we are live. Welcome, everyone. Boy, 2 times in one day. I hope you guys don't get sick of me. I changed my shirt, and it's a special shirt based on the guests that I'm going to be talking to. I am so excited because she's one of my favorite people. I've known her close to 30 years. Actually, I'm mentioned in her book, which I'm going to show you as well. And, you know, I know some people don't believe in this, but we're going to just keep an open mind and hear what she has to say, because a lot of people didn't believe in it either. She has a lot of celebrity clients that didn't believe in it until they actually had a reading. She is an animal communicator. She's very well known. Her name is Lydia Hiby. I'm going to type in her website right there if you want to check it out. And I'm going to show you her book in a minute. But first, I want to welcome her. Hi, Lydia. It's so great to actually have been wanting to interview you for years.
Hi, AJ. How are you?
Good. Well, and you know, it's just, I know technology isn't your favorite thing, so thank you for figuring this out.
I'm trying, I'm learning.
Right. So we're going to talk a lot about what an animal communicator is, because it's not exactly, you know, people think, ooh, woo-woo psychic, and you know, a lot of times we call them pet psychics, but it's actually more than that. And Lydia actually taught classes for years at the Pasadena Society class that well-renowned, well-respected people like my own personal veterinarian took and my dog trainer took. And we'll talk a little bit about how she actually teaches what she does. But she's actually the author of a book you can get on Amazon called Conversations with Animals. And if you go to page 178, she talks about me and my dog Scooby. She has helped me for almost 30 years with my pets, from Scooby to Ginger to Sparky to the one on my lap now named Bailey, and you know, Cesar Milan, who's one of my favorite people, who's helped me tremendously. I introduced them, and she's done some work with him. So I just always want to know, on your income tax form, what does it say?
Animal consultant.
Okay. So how does one become an animal consultant, an animal communicator? What is it you do, and how do you do it?
Well, that's a great question. The cover of my book is me talking to a goose when I was little. That's actually me on the cover. And I was 3 years old. My mom used to take me on nature walks and everything. And so I would just stand there and I would give her my impression of it, not thinking anything of it, because everyone is born with this and children are really good at it. And so when someone's child comes up to me, or my clients say, look, my daughter does this, or I'm like, absolutely, it's God-given. Everybody does it. So I forgot about it. Then I went on to be a vet nurse. And so I went to Delhi in New York, and that's what I thought I was going to be, was a veterinary technician. And I loved it and did it for 12 years. And then I met my mentor, Beatrice Lydecker, out in New Jersey, because I'm a former New Yorker. And they said, this woman from California is going to talk to the animals. And I forgot I did it. I was like, okay, whatever. Just like everybody else, I love skeptics. And she proved it to me. And long story short, she said, look, I'm looking for someone to train. It was in the 70s. And so that's why I moved out to California. So that's pretty much in the book, but that's the snapshot version of it.
Well, you know, it's funny you mentioned Beatrice Lydecker, because that's actually how I ultimately heard of you. You know, I am somebody that is very open-minded to whether you call yourself a psychic or communicator, both for humans and pets. But this was in the 90s, or actually in the late 80s. The veterinarian that I went to had Beatrice Lydecker come occasionally and give readings. And I didn't think it was anything. I said, oh yeah, right, she can talk to dogs. But it was very affordable back then. It was like $20 or $25. And I go, what the heck? And this is when I had a dog named Lucky. And she didn't know me. I never met her. And the stuff that she was saying was so specific. It wasn't just like, your dog likes, you know, cheese. It was like, you take your dog to the drive-through and get him an ice cream cone. It's vanilla. Now, okay, now I never told my veterinarian that, because he would have killed me, because you're not really supposed to do that for you.
Right.
Like, how did she know that? And then she described a family member, like exactly my brother-in-law, what he looked like with the beard and the baseball hat. And I was like blown away. Unfortunately, she had a health challenge, and she went back to Oregon, and she never came back to California. And she had mentioned you, and I drove about an hour and a half to have my first reading with you in person. I think you were in Riverside back then.
That's correct.
They had done an amazing article about you, actually, in the Los Angeles Times. You were written up, and then that's how I found you. And then I was sold right away, because the thing that's great about Lydia is, first of all, she lets you tape record or video record all her sessions, so she's not afraid, like, so you know that it's there. And you're so specific. Like I always sometimes would like to trick you when my dog was sick and say, okay, what's wrong? And like, front left paw, second finger. So how do you do it?
Okay, so I explain it to people, and when I teach, it's like I've stepped inside the animal and become them. I know a lot of people are laughing at that. I did too. But you know, your legs are your arms are your front legs, and all that kind of stuff. So it's like that you're viewing through their eyes. And when I teach the class, which you've taken and done very well multiple times, that's what people get. And then there are other people that don't get any pictures at all. They get emotions, feelings, hunches. So everyone's different, but and then it's in real time with them in the moment. But the challenge of animals is that they live in the moment. So sometimes they'll give you something that happened a year ago, and then you start asking other questions. When did this happen, etc. So.
Well, is it hard, like if you go to like a park or something, I mean, does every animal try to talk to you? Does every bird in the tree try to talk to you, and every caterpillar?
Yeah, a lot of people, a lot of wild animals are doing their own thing. But the other day I was stepped outside my door. I live in Florida now, and a couple of little geckos were hanging out, and they're like, "Hey, how you doing? You're new here." And they came right over to me. But yeah, most animals are pretty much dialed into their owners. Or if I go to a ranch call where there's like 30 or 40 horses or something, I get a lot of horses saying, "I want to connect with you." So I try to focus my attention on the one that people really need me to do. But if it's just left open, a lot of times they will. And they will go up to their owners and stare at them, and people go, "Well, I thought they want something." A lot of times they're just reading their thoughts going by. It's like a CNN scroll almost.
How long have you been doing this?
34 years. I feel
That's
very blessed.
incredible.
It is incredible.
And what, I've taken your class and you've taught us how to do it, and I do really well in the class, but you actually do it remotely. You have clients in Europe. How do you do it when the animal is not right in front of you?
No, that's a great question. So someone called me up last week from Iran. It was a couple that was in the military. They were working over there, and husband and wife, doctor and nurse. Mom went back to Newport Beach, and they had adopted a dog on the street in Iran. And the dog kept saying to me, "Well, I can see Mom in this little black box." I'm thinking black. And I said, "Wait a minute. Are you FaceTiming with your dog and your wife back?" And he goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "The dog kept hitting the phone thinking it was a window, seeing Mom, and didn't understand." So that blows my mind. It's like two twins, one burns her hand, the other one feels it. Or you're thinking of someone, you get a text and you go, "That was weird. I was just thinking about you." We're all connected, and animals are connected too. So
It's amazing. Diane, who's watching live, says she has 5 rescue dogs. Do they remember the abuse that they had?
yes, Diane, unfortunately they do. A lot of times they're willing to leave it behind, and sometimes it is good to bring it up and have them have a conversation about it, just like a person that has therapy. And yeah, we can take them back in time if they need to. And occasionally I have an animal that says, that was in the past. I don't want to revisit that. But that was a great question.
Yeah, that's amazing. That is so. I just have to show you this new shirt that I just got for my birthday. I don't know if you can see it. And I thought maybe that'd be a good shirt for you on your days off. Yeah, yeah. So, okay, so I have Bailey here, everybody, and it's so funny because she usually cannot wait to come up, but I think she knows she's going to be talked to because she's trying to get off my lap. And I wanted to ask you well, first, before we get to me, how are the animals reacting to these sheltering in place? Because for us, we work at home. It's not much different for Bailey, but what is it like for all the animals out there who's now all of a sudden their parents are home 9 to 5?
That's a great question. I kind of addressed that on my Facebook page, but basically half of them are thrilled. They're like, "This is awesome." Instead of waiting all day long. But then there are certain animals that are caregivers. Bailey is one of them, where it's like, okay, when you go take a nap for a little while, or you come out to do something in person when life was different, that they're like, "Oh, good, that's my downtime." So the animals that are emotional therapists, they usually sleep during the day deeply while their owners are at work. And then when they come home, they clock in. So those are the ones that are going, "Oh my God." And in general, all animals are feeling the kind of just the anxiety and the depression that we are. And especially I have a lot of horse clients who right now, if their horses are not living at home, and the majority of them are not, they can't physically get to the barn. So I've been doing a lot of those calls where the trainer's talking to them on the phone and I'm talking to them long distance. So yeah, there's just it's a whole nother situation for them and for us.
Wow, that's incredible. So I have a question here from Susan. How do I find out about your classes, and can anyone talk to animals? I have posted your website, which is your name, lydiahiby.com, several places.
Yes, and my classes are usually local in Los Angeles and Escondido, but if someone wants to get a group together when the world turns back the way it's supposed to, hopefully, I do a lot of traveling. And someone also asked me about doing virtual classes. I'm going to look into that. I'm going to think that maybe that's something we need to do. They can get on my mailing list and they can watch the other YouTube videos that are up there too. Mhm.
Right. Well, I take, this is because for fun, I do acting classes, both improv and stand-up comedy. And the minute the sheltering in place happened, all my teachers are teaching us on Zoom now. So it's really, really, it's not as good as in person, but it's better than not having the class. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and talk about having a group. Lydia will travel if you get enough people. And what I used to do in LA is every year I celebrate my dog's birthday, and I would get like 20 people, and she would do the readings for everybody's dog. So it was really, really fun to do that. Gina says, please ask her about housebreaking a dog who I've tried to train for 10 years. I'm at my wit's end. Where do you live, Gina?
Well, I live in Panama City Beach, but I can talk to anybody over the phone. And when I do help an animal, I cannot tell them what to do. I'm happy to ask. And I've had a couple people recently say, oh, well, I talked to some other communicator, not talking about anybody in person, but they were told that they could tell an animal what to do and it would do it immediately. And I said, they have free will. Even when you and I met Cesar and stuff, it's like they have free will. So yeah, I do my consultations Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Thursday evenings, and now pretty much infrequently through the rest of the weekend if someone needs me. But yeah, and after 10 years, I mean, it's like an older person learning something, but that doesn't mean you can't do that, but I can find out what the issue is. And I also do a medical bio scan. And a lot of people say to me, okay, well, and I'm not a veterinarian. I've helped a lot of veterinarians. I have a lot of veterinarians that refer me, but I understand the physiology, the basic physiology of animals. I know all the drugs that are given. I do a lot of holistic stuff, so I can give you suggestions. And I can also say, look, when you go back to your vet, please ask about this test or something else. And I try to empower and educate people.
Wow. So yeah, think about, we're not trying to make you guys get consults, but some of this stuff is very specific and she can't really help you on this forum just because she needs to really be doing her thing where she's quiet and looking away and talking to your pet. But it's something you might want to consider if talking to your veterinarian or your behaviorist hasn't helped these conditions, like your cat that's not coming downstairs or cat that's spraying. So possibly consider that. Well, you've talked to my dogs before because we have regular sessions, and I was wondering, could I ask a few questions on behalf of
course.
Just so, and we can see how your process is. So this is just kind of a fun question. Usually I call you when it's more medical, but so I work at home, so I could literally be sitting at this desk for 24 hours and she doesn't want anything to do with me. But the second I go live, she has to be on my lap. Except for right now with you, she jumped off my lap. But it's almost like she only wants attention when I'm live.
Okay, well, it's interesting. It's a great question. She's not asking or wanting attention from you. She said, my job is to sit on your lap and keep you grounded. And because you and I know each other, she said, I don't need to do that. So it's her way of making you feel safe. So it's a great example because so many times people say to me, oh, my animal's needy. And there's certainly a lot of needy animals, but she's like, no, I'm your caregiver. I'm your empath. I'm your guardian. And I keep you grounded. And a lot of people also ask me, how come my cat wants to sit on my keyboard on my computer? Number one, not good. They think it's the warmth, and the cat's going, you need a break. And so, but in her case, she said, I know you're fine. So she just said that you've been doing more yoga or exercise or something. She goes, I help her out with that too. I'm very busy.
It's so true. It's so true. I think you once said that when I first adopted Bailey, that she was like, she supervised all my activities, and she does. And it's true because I'm not nervous at all talking to you. I've known you 30 years, but I do get very nervous when I'm talking to my guests, especially when I don't know them or they're doctors. So that makes perfect sense because I swear to God, you guys, this is the first time she's like not anywhere on my lap. So that's very interesting. Gina says, can she tune into pets that have passed? My understanding is if you go to her website, it's Lydia can, and she can even tune into lost pets, but she specializes in the pets in the here and now, and she refers to other people for that. Am I correct?
Okay, so here's the thing. I can do animals that have crossed over. However, Teresa is the master of doing that. That's why I let her do that. So it's rare that I get into that. I do more of the medical, and I used to do lost pets. You're right, but I cannot do it anymore. Why? Because I got so emotionally invested So there is a person referral, Tim Link in Atlanta. So when they go there, though, because I got overwhelmed, I was just getting to the point where it was like, okay, 100 million animals get lost every day in the United States. It's a crazy statistic. And so, and when you become that animal, it's like if back in the day, we didn't know what a GoPro was, but now if you had a camera on them, all you would see from the animal's perspective is running through streets. And maybe if they happen to look up and just say at the 7-Eleven, you and I know what that is, but they would have no idea. And then there's like a gajillion 7-Elevens all over the place. So yeah, I have 2 other people for those 2 things, but I do litter evaluations. If people end up wanting to know about a particular dog like agility, or I talked to a police dog that was having a problem, or companion dogs, I also do horse evaluations along with everything else. That's pretty much what my thing is.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, it's always just fun, just I love having sessions, even when there's nothing wrong, just because it's really fun tuning in. When I've taken your class, I've done very well talking to other people's pets, but yet I can't seem to talk to my own.
Oh, that's a great question. So it's really hard to step back and be objective with your own animal, because your mind kind of starts running like, I thought it was this, and maybe it's this. It's kind of like doctors shouldn't really work on their own patients, and it's hard for a mom sometimes to step back from a child. But usually they come through to you, your animals come through when you least expect it. So I say to people, when you're taking a nap, when you first go to sleep or wake up, or you're doing something else mundane like vacuuming or washing, doing the dishes or something, or when it comes across your screen and you're like, that was weird, I wasn't even thinking about it. So lately what I've been telling people to do is, if you have 2 or 3 questions, write them down on a piece of paper. And then the next question to me, well, how do they understand English? Animals talk in pictures. So whether you say, do you want to go for a walk, in German and French and Spanish, the image that you give them is that. Write 3 quick questions down, say them, and then go about your business. And if something pops up, you're like, oh, that was the park we went to a couple of days ago, or that happened a year ago. And they'll start to give you validation. And they'll look at you weird like, well, you've never talked to me like that before. So that's a fun thing to do. The kids love it. Oh my gosh, the kids are home. Ask your kids to talk to your pets. They'll tell you everything.
That's great. And those would be really good techniques to use, like if you're separated from your pet, because maybe you have to, like you're in the hospital or have to go out of town, sending them like pictures.
Absolutely. That's a great thing too. So when I was working with Beatrice, part of my mentorship is I had to take care of her 12 shepherds while she traveled. So she finally went to Europe, and on the back of her first book, she was sitting in a circle with the dog sitting around. That was the image. So at 3 o'clock in the morning, while I was at her house, I had 12 shepherds on a waterbed. Back in the day, the old waterbed. All of a sudden, I thought it was a tidal wave, because the dogs got restless and the phone rang, and she goes, I'm missing my dogs. And I said, will you look at the back of your book? And she flipped the book over. And as soon as she said, it showed the picture to them of them being calm, they all went, oh my God, thank God. And I said, you can't do that. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. I almost got bounced out of bed because they were so anxious. So yeah, that's a great thing. If you sit quietly and you think about sending them calming energy, they pick up on that.
Yeah, that's great. Louise says, how do you feel about talking to cats? I think she's talked to just about every kind of animal.
Oh, yes, I worked at a cat hospital. I've had 12 cats in I love cats, dogs, iguanas. I mean, I could talk to fleas and ants, but they're really not going to answer to me because they're a group consciousness. But I've done iguanas, the iguana in the Phil Collins video. I've done exotic animals, worked with different zoos, so all kinds of animals.
Yeah. Leslie, who I know very well, says, my daughter, and by the way, you never sent me that video, Leslie. My daughter's beloved 3-year-old rescue dog suddenly lost the use of his back legs last week, diagnosed with IVDD, and they are planning for surgery soon. Would it benefit for them to schedule a call with you to communicate to their dog? I think it would, Leslie, and her phone days happen to be Tuesday and Wednesday, because she doesn't work against your veterinarian, she works with your veterinarian. And at least I know my veterinarian was always open every time. It was sad leaving LA because I had gone to my veterinarian for 35 years, but every time I bring my dog and he goes, what's Lydia say? Is it because he knew that I would call you first? And she goes, well, she says it's this. Oh, well, she's right. So
I love that. I so appreciate you sharing that too.
Absolutely. So have you ever talked to any famous animals like Lassie or?
Yes, I did. When I was on my book tour, I got to meet Lassie. It was in the morning at Washington, D.C. And he came through the newsroom, and the whole place got quiet and just stalled out. And I looked behind me, and they had not told me that Lassie, because Lassie is my jam. I was like, and I turned around, I'm like, oh my goodness. And so they sat Lassie next to me, and Robert, the trainer, was off camera. And I started communicating with Lassie, and Lassie kept looking at me, and Robert's like, what's going on here? So at the first break, he came over and he goes, I have never in all my dogs ever seen one of my dogs not look at me, but look at you. So something is going on. So yes, and Lassie loved being the ambassador. I've talked to a couple of border collies that were in the Babe movie, and they were annoyed. They're like, enough with this already. So they were very happy about it. I have several clients that are animal wranglers, and they do all kinds of TV commercials and everything, and their animals love doing it. So yes. Mm-hmm.
Any birds or elephants or wild animals?
I've been to elephants at the Honolulu Zoo, and I'm not a big fan of zoos in general. However, they really wanted to know if their animals were okay. I've been to the Wild Animal Park in San Diego. So anything that's above ground, they understand that people are trying to help them. And occasionally there's been a couple. I've been to Tippi Hedren's place a long time ago. She was lovely, and she really goes out of her way. Most of those sanctuaries that are under that umbrella are trying to do a good job, because there's still a lot of exotic pet trade. So yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's incredible. Nadesh says, I love Lydia's energy. That's because she's an Aries, just like me. You just had a birthday, didn't you? The 10th?
Yes, I did. Yeah. No, the second. Yes. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, I remember that very well. So if we see in not that, well, this could happen actually in LA. There was these pit bulls that were loose and they were hurting all the dogs. Is there anything we can do? Like, I would never hurt an animal, of course, but is there anything we can do energetically if we're at risk or our dog is at risk? I don't want to be carrying mace or guns, or like, what can we do to, like, say, stop mentally to these animals?
That's a great question, because there's two things that can happen. If they're in a pack dynamic and they're just targeted on someone, unless it's Cesar, you're not going to back them up. I mean, it really takes that much amount of energy to do it, and you're not going to stop an animal's impulse or their intention to something, unfortunately. I had a couple of situations at different ranches where there were ranch dogs, and they're allowed to be there. It's their place. And someone would have brought a dog that was just really overexcited. And I stood in front of the owner who was there with their dog getting excited. And I said, leave it. And then I said, drop it. And they all went down to the ground. And the owner said, well, I've never taught them those things, but I sent it with intention. It's not easy to do when you're worried about your own pet and what's going on. So we also, in Burbank, where I lived up until a few months ago, there was horse trails there. And there were a couple of horses that, dumped a rider, and they were just running pell-mell. They were coming down our street, and I was able to say easy, but they still flew past us. When an animal's in the moment and they're going to go on their own instincts, it's really tough. So yeah. And my dad was walking a collie I gave him, and he had dogs jumping the fence. And so I got him a cattle prod, which anybody that's been around cattle, all it is just, it's got two prongs, and it's really used in a dairy barn, because I did that in college. And if they get in the wrong place, it's kind of like I don't know, we're going to get into some weird territory, but sometimes you have to have a remote control device to control an animal. Sometimes it's for its own safety. So I gave it to him, and he loved Harry Potter. So I said, all you have to do is point it at the dog and say, leave it. Well, he didn't know I put the batteries in it when I sent it to him. It was years ago. And he said, and the Akina jumped over the fence, and he said, I pointed and said, leave it, and it ran off. And then he said to me, did you put any batteries in this thing? And I said, yes. And he put it up against the stop sign, and it sparked a little bit. Now, it was only 2 deep batteries. So, and he goes, oh my gosh, I said, it was your intention. If your intention is strong enough, but again, in that moment, sometimes it's not strong enough to back off a pack of dogs. So
that's why I moved. That's the main reason I left LA, was because of what was happening. And I wanted to be in a gated community with an HOA where I think the likelihood of that happening is low. Do you know anything about dreams? Because there's a post from Susan. When she was younger, she always dreamt about cats, even though she didn't have any. And lately I have, and this is weird because I didn't even know I was going to be interviewing you, but I've dreamt about first Ginger and Sparky, then Ginger and Scooby. And I literally they've never come to me in my dreams since they've passed. And now does that mean like I'm going to die?
Oh gosh, no. Okay. So I'm sure most of your people know who your animals are, but those are 2 dogs of yours that I've known that have crossed over. So in times of stress, animals and people we love come to check in. I've had a couple of clients say to me, oh, I felt my mom around. My mom's been gone 28 years. So usually it's just, they're just reassuring you that things are okay, depending upon the dream. When you dream of a particular animal, there's a great book, and you could look up Ted Andrews' Animal Speak. He was a Native American who did this incredible called Animal Totems, like I'm drawn to dolphins and horses and dogs for certain reasons. Or when that gecko crossed my path, I looked it up and it said new beginnings. So when it's an animal that you haven't had, a generic thing, I would look up on Animal Speak and see, and then you'll notice right in that time frame why that animal came to you.
That sounds great. I wonder if I can interview him, because, it's funny, because in the dream, it was 2 nights in a row. The first night it was Ginger and Sparky. And then the second night it was Ginger and Scooby, because they were both couples with each other. And in the dream, it was just like they were still alive. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so happy you're still alive. And then I woke up and then I was like, they're not alive. So it was like, you know what I mean? It was weird, but the dreams were good. It was just great seeing them again.
It is. Well, Ted Andrews has crossed over, but his website is very informative. I think there are a couple of other people carrying on his work to answer that question. And yeah, when we're feeling very stressed out, that is their way of just coming and checking in, because animals see Earth as school. And heaven is a good place whenever they get there. And they certainly don't like leaving us, but they only get to be here for a certain amount of time. And so when we're under stress, they come back as reassurance, even though it's bittersweet.
How is there a special place in hell for people like Michael Vick or animal abusers?
Okay, well, I'm a Christian, and people ask me that all the time. I think, if I say I get this gift from God, and every reading I do, I say a prayer. So I do believe something negative happens to people that do those kind of things. I don't know what it is. I've never, had any other inspiration about it. I try to just move forward and be positive about it. But there are a lot of animals that unfortunately go through a life lesson with a human or another animal, whether that human or other animal learns it or not. And then it's part of the bigger picture, which would be a whole nother conversation. But I'm glad you asked about that. Yeah. Because I've had, the gal who brought up the rescue dogs, maybe there's a situation in one of her group of animals where I had one yesterday. A rescue dog said, look, the first person I was with really beat me. But the animal said to me, but I knew he had been beaten as a child. He picked that up from the owner. So he took the abuse and also shielded the other animals in that situation, always stepped in front, not unlike people that are in law enforcement or someone who's protecting somebody else. You would sacrifice yourself. A lot of animals do that. And then what happens is, and I've seen this multiple times, is the universe or God, whatever people want to talk about, then they get into a place where they're pampered and loved. And I'm getting the chills about it now. And so they have heaven on earth, and they're like, this is what I get for fulfilling that goal and role. And that's what happens.
Oh, wow, that's beautiful. I like to look at it that way. Angela says, how do we talk to our pets?
Okay, great question. Yeah. So you can tell an animal what to do, but it's up to them to decide what to do. They have free choice, but they only understand the positive perspective. So the quick analogy I give is, if you tell a child not to touch the oven and they've never had that experience, what do? They go right over and put their hand on it, because they followed your mental picture. Then once they burn their hand, you can just say, Tommy, if you do that again, you're going to burn yourself. Then you see the wheels turning, like, oh, truth or consequences. So even if you've had an animal that's 11 or 12 years of age, and you start saying to them, if you do this, this is going to happen, or start talking in the positive, like, be soft, be quiet, be gentle. And I've had 2 roommates over the years that are great dog trainers, and they didn't realize that they were taught to tell people no bark or no bite. Well, no just means stop what you're doing. And then you want to follow it up with no, be quiet, or no, be gentle, or no, easy. And then you'll see your animal go, oh, that's so great. Because if you say, don't jump on the couch, that's the first thing you send is that picture. The dog goes, okay, light bulb, I got it. And they go over there, and the dog's like, I'm on the couch, and they're not happy. I don't get it. And then they kind of figure it out after a while. So if you start saying positive terms, and they may check you like, okay, you sure? And then you follow it up with praise. And here's the other thing about animals. They see anger and excitement as excitement. So when Cesar says, calm, submissive, or anybody else says calm, the more effective you are as a navigator with your animal is the calmer you are. But that's the hardest time to be calm, is if they're doing something negative. So you have to really accentuate the positive and stay calm and disciplined in the negative.
Yeah, absolutely. Brenda says, animals like me. Sometimes it's very strange the way they come to me. I've had weird experiences. What is up with that?
Well, they're probably seeing that your energy is open. And sometimes they're feeling like they either could nurture you or they're drawn to you. One of my last lost pet cases years ago was a basset hound that was running around my old neighborhood in Staten Island. And a friend of mine from high school called me and she said, I said, well, and she had was able to videotape it. She was working with a camera crew, a news crew, and he was running around. And then as she was talking about it, he came flying up to her and sat right in front of her. And she was like going, what is this dog doing here? And she said, what is he saying? He goes, you had a basset hound as a child. Nobody else knew what to do with me. I ran to you for safety. So or you go to a cocktail party when we could do those things. Who does the cat go to? The person who's allergic. The cat goes, oh, he sees your picture of, I'm allergic. Don't come to me. And the cat goes, okay, comes right over. So they read your thoughts and your energy all the time. So it's probably really good energy.
Leslie, who has the daughter who has the dog that can't walk, was saying that it requires $10,000 surgery for like a very, very small amount. You can have a reading with Lydia, because even if she what's nice about talking to Lydia is Lydia can talk to the pet and maybe calm the pet down or reassure the pet, tell the pet what it's going through, ask the pet what it's willing to do. And Lydia also offers lots of, I guess, either homeopathic or natural remedies. I remember when I got Sparky, the dog that we had, Ginger, just didn't like him. And I mean, she didn't, not aggressively, but basically it was just so sad for like 5 days. She just ignored him and it was heartbreaking. And Lydia told me to go to Whole Foods and buy these things called Bach flower remedies. She told me exactly which ones to buy, put them in the water, and the next day they were playing. So Leslie, consider having a session just because of the other things Lydia offers. I mean, obviously she's not going to do the surgery, but like, do people ever consult with you like about it? Is it time for euthanasia?
Yeah, that's a big part of my business. And I take that just as seriously as if every animal that I do is it's one of my own, because each animal is different about what they'll accept. Some of them are okay with having lots of surgeries, lots of procedures. Then there are other ones going, you know what? I just want to enjoy my short time here and and do it that way. So yeah, that's a big part of it. Absolutely.
Gina says, what is the best thing to do or say to your pet before we have to put them down?
Oh, I love that question, Gina. Wow. Just say that I'm going to see you soon. I love you. And that you're just going to gently go to sleep. That's really their experience. They just usually close their eyes. Back in the day, they did other things as far as the drugs, but now it's just really an overdose of anesthesia, kind of to make it, so people understand it. And they usually just close their eyes and go. And it's like when I told my mom she could go, I just said, it's going to be okay. I will see you at some point, and I love you. That's really all you need to say.
Yeah, that is the hardest thing. I mean, it's just like every time a dog, I can't, it's like every time a dog goes, I'm never going to get another one. And then within 2 weeks, I have another one because it's,
And I love that, because everybody worries about like, oh, I want to respect the memory of the animal that I had, but they don't want us to be unhappy. I mean, we are humans dealing with the physical aspect of living here, and they want to give us love. And there's so many other animals that would love to be loved by people like you and me. And so and they each come with their own lesson and their own challenges. It's amazing, and their own gifts. I mean, every animal that's touched you. I know all the other ones of my clients that have touched me. I have some clients that I've gone through 3 or 4 lifetimes with pets along with you. So we've all kind of grown together. So I wouldn't want anybody to limit themselves.
they don't fear death the same way we do, right?
Okay, well, it depends on the animal and with the situation. So nobody wants to think about animals in shelters and stuff, but half the animals that are in that situation, they don't realize how serious the situation is. Some of them that are young souls are like, oh, this is interesting, I'm going to hang out here. The other ones are like, get me out of here, I don't want to leave, kind of thing. It depends on the animal and their emotional and spiritual growth.
Wow. So just because I'm getting so sad, let's do something fun. So, Bailey's the smallest dog I ever had, 16 pounds. And so I got her all these clothes and sweaters, and I don't think she really likes them.
Oh, okay. She's okay. So it was a great question. A lot of people, some animals just love to dress up, and you can see it. They parade around, they're like, and she goes, I don't mind it. But she said, sometimes some of them kind of rub underneath my armpits, and so it depends on the fit. And also she said, sometimes I'm a little too warm. Each animal is different. People ask me this about horses and blankets. There's some horses that love a lot of blankets, and others, like my horse that I had, he said, I'd rather go naked. So it depends on who they are.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so if you guys ever have a chance to do it, if anybody's watching from, are you doing classes in Florida yet? I know you're still doing them in.
Not yet. As soon as things, I mean, I have a couple of locations that are ready to do it. So, and it always is posted on the first page of my website on the right-hand side.
Mhm.
And they can sign up and be on the mailing list. They can follow me on Facebook or Instagram and stuff. As soon as we get back to normal, which we're all praying for and the animals are praying for, then yes, I will be doing classes. Yes.
Because I took the class like probably 20 times. I mean, almost every time it was offered. And when you're in the class situation, if you're a skeptic, the class will prove to you that it's not, because there is no way that all these people in the class could be shills, because you're coming into a class with, you don't know anybody. And basically when it's your turn, meaning you have your pet, well, if your pet is like a smaller pet, you wouldn't bring like, a horse with you probably. But if you have a smaller pet, then when it's your turn for the group to talk to them, all you basically say is the name of your pet, how old the pet is, and when you got them. And then when you hear the answers, you're like, how could you? They describe the house you live in. They describe, it's amazing how just after a few hours, these people are able to do what you do to the people in the class.
Mhm. And then the people that have larger pets like horses or people that travel, I've had people fly, I tell them to bring 8 by 10 photographs, because the second part of the class, we also work with photographs. And so it doesn't matter if the animal's not with you, you can have the picture. That always blows everybody's mind too. It did me the first time, long time ago.
Right. I found the pictures a little bit harder, though. I don't know why. And so that I can't even imagine what you do when you're not even seeing the pet, but that's amazing. Gina says she'd love to take a virtual class. So if you ever did one,
Okay, Gina, I'm going to work on it. That's one of my projects. Thank you.
because now you finally figured out how to use Zoom. So that's terrific. So I don't know if Lydia knows the answer to this, but I'll ask her. Susan asks, when people hoard animals, what is going on between them? I know the person is intending to rescue, but what are the animals thinking? Because some of those situations are just not so good when they find these houses with like 50 cats and
Yeah, no, that is a great question. So initially they do get that the person had good intentions, and then they're there to kind of support that person, because animals can read our thoughts. Getting back to that basic thing, they can read energetically if someone's doing it on purpose to be mean, or if they've had some kind of a mental challenge, or if they're an alcoholic, or they're doing drugs, whatever that is, they can feel the energy. If someone's just doing something to be mean, then they would get pissed off and they would rebel. But they also collectively realize that initially that person was trying to help out everybody. And I've talked to a lot of animals that have been in that kind of situation, and that's what they'll say to me. Well, initially he or she had very good intentions, and we all just kind of try to hang out together. And then when they were separated, they got into a better situation. So, it's incredible to me how forgiving animals are about all kinds of situations. Unbelievable. They're just really way more forgiving than I think I would be as a human sometimes.
I know they're so much better than us. Gina says,
Well, that's our opinion, right?
right, that's my opinion. This is just the opinion of me. Yeah, I used to have a shirt when I was 19. The more I know people, the better I like my dog. But
Mhm.
Gina says, Chef AJ, the nicest and most interesting people. Thank you. I thank you so much for saying that. So what do our animals want from us? I mean, I always, like, now that I work at home, it's like the best. I don't have to feel guilty leaving them. But a lot of people do have to go to, well, not right now, which is great because they can really bond. But what do they want from us?
That's also a great question. Most animals, and I say most, deal with quality time and not quantity time. And so when people were working 8 to 5 or even 12 hours, whatever, God bless, they were doing, and they came home, their animals would just say, I just need a few minutes. I want to check in with you. And so that's really what a lot of them are here for. Then you have the gimme kids. Those are the ones that meet you at the door and they go, okay, forget about everybody else. Just feed me right now. And then they run off. Those are the young souls. So most of the time, most animals just want to look into you and just say, can I do anything for you? Tell me about your day. And they're just grateful that they have people that care about them. So I'd say the majority of them is about quality time, not quantity time.
Jill says, animals are my favorite people. That's great. I just always feel like that I don't do enough, like I mean, like buying clothes or, do they want activities? Do they want special treats? Because Bailey doesn't seem to want toys. She just, all she wants to do, she's a Velcro dog. She just wants to be on your lap.
No, that's great. There are the young souls usually can't get enough toys. They look at you like, oh, we're going to the store. Can you get me something else? Sometimes they do want special food, or in the class when we do the section of, okay, what does your animal like to eat? And it's usually things that are not good for them. But then they will ask for requests, like I want a little piece of banana, maybe their potassium's low, or they want some sweet potatoes because their liver is out of balance. And we talk about that in the class. So some things that are requests that they haven't had, or there are certain breeds of animals like Akitas that need to have fish in their diet, and people don't know that or forget to give it to them, or they're feeding the wrong protein, like dogs that are field dogs, like retrievers and spaniels. They should really never have chicken. And people are like, really? Why? Because they're out hunting. So when you look at, especially in dog breeds, what they were bred to do, a lot of times what people think are food allergies, and some animals do actually have allergies to food, but it's the wrong type of protein. So for me, on the flip side, when I started working with Beatrice, she still has shepherds. I had collies. I was giving my dog lamb because I thought that was a good thing. And she's like, hello, they're supposed to herd lamb, not eat them. And once I flipped the protein and gave them chicken, they were better. So there are a lot of things that animals will say to me, well, my mom's trying to do the right thing and my dad. And it's just, there's a lot of information out there. One of the things as a vet tech I did was counsel clients about diets and things like that under the umbrella of veterinarians and everything. So many things have had a lot of chemicals. Now we've gotten better about using more, natural things, but things like all chemicals on the floor that leave residual, people that are painting, working in their house. I had one dog a couple of days ago was talking to me about like, oh, my mom does her nails and I sit under her table and the acetone was making him sick. And she's like, oh my God, I have no idea. And so she texted me this morning. She goes, he's so much better now, because even though she was aerating her house, that acetone was, so the littlest things sometimes will affect them as what people think is a behavioral problem. And instead it's a biochemical problem. And the last thing before I forget, and this is really important, is all animals should be on some kind of filtered water if you can do it, no matter where you live. I'm a former New Yorker. We always said that the water in New York was great, but especially in states like California where it's reclaimed, every time we go through a time change, they add more chemicals to water. How do I know this? I have a lot of clients that work in water districts. And so the best thing they can do right now, if they can, is either do some kind of filtered water, or at least if it's an older animal, try to do that. And even with the people that have horses, there's a horse hydrogenator filter that you can put at the water supply and help them get purified water. That's been a huge thing.
Wow, thank you. That's a very good point. Most people that I know love their pets very much and their pets love them. But have you ever come across in a reading where like the pet, the dog or cat or the bird or the fish just said, you know what, I don't really like them?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, it's interesting that you brought up birds, because I do a lot of birds, and birds are very specific about who they choose is going to be their person. Sometimes when a bird is supposed to be given to like the wife, for example, and she's been waiting, then the bird goes to the husband and says, I like him better. He smells better. Or he wasn't planning on me, or a dog that was given to somebody else and it gravitates. So it's about energy. So occasionally it does come up, and I try to give it to them in a gentle manner and give them things like Bach remedies that you brought up, or maybe some other thing that they can do, like, oh, the husband's going to walk the dog and the mom does agility with it or something like that. So I can ask them and see what suggestions. And usually that person knows and they want to know why, or they come in with big energy. I had a call yesterday, gentleman, God bless him, is a police officer. When he comes home in uniform, the dog's like, because of all his energy and what he's been through. And he said, well, once I get in my comfortable clothes and I'm sitting in my recliner, he's all over me. And I said, that's because your energy has shifted. So if someone's finding an animal is not wanting to be with them, or they're just, the animal is so super sensitive and shy, maybe it's relatively new, it's always been that way. When you just kind of pull your energy back in and get quiet, then you'll see them approaching them. And then you can't get excited and want to pounce on them. You have to just say, well, I'll let them come to me.
Yeah. I think it's important what you said about toxins and chemicals in the home, because their pads are very sensitive. And like, if you clean your floor with pine salt, that they absorb that. That's not going to be good for them.
Mm-hmm. And even in the air too. Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. Jackie wants to know what your thoughts are about CBD for pain management. I have an 11-year-old Pomeranian that has chronic inflammation.
Well, the first thing is I always tell people to ask their vet, and a lot of vets now are getting on board with that, because there are a lot of different drugs, but just like people, sometimes it doesn't work or it doesn't react with them. I have a lot of clients that do use it for both their horses and their dogs. So it really depends, again, on the animal. It's just like in people. For some people, Tylenol works very well. Other people, Advil doesn't. So first you should talk to her vet. And if her vet's like, okay, fine, because if the animal's taking other medications, there could be a counterindication there. So the first line thing, and a lot of the vets they're still open, God bless. I used to be the first person you would call, because when I worked in the back, I came up to the front. So you can just say, can you ask the vet, pull the chart, and they can get an answer to you. So, but it has helped a lot of animals. It really depends on the animal individually.
Yeah. You know, they talk about secondhand smoke for humans. If people smoke, they shouldn't smoke in the house with their pets, right? The pets are affected too, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, we didn't think about that years ago, but when I was a vet tech and I would have to hold an animal, but yes, they get emphysema, they get heart problems, and a lot of animals are so dedicated they want to sit. One of my cats was staying with a roommate of mine while I was traveling with Beatrice for 3 months. He ended up getting asthma, and she felt awful. She goes, I didn't even think about it. So I try not to do any kind of judgment, but yes, they can be exposed to that, and it's not good for them either.
Wow. Angela says, how do we ask our cats if they like each other? It seems like one wishes she was an only child and she just tolerated the other. We wanted them to be better friends. There's a 5-year age difference.
Oh, that's a great question. Okay, so when cats became popular, and I was not a cat person, not that I didn't like them, it's just I wasn't around. And when I worked at the cat hospital in New York City, cats are way more independent than dogs. We kind of understand that, but we forget that. And they have all kinds of different territories. Sometimes you can bring them together with play, communal play. Sometimes you can give them rescue remedy, put it in the water. Also, we used to say at the cat hospital, a little catnip goes a long way. And I've had people say, well, I've tried just catnip, nothing works, but you have to get a specific kind of catnip, which is cosmic catnip. And I don't get any kickbacks, but it's just one of the ones that works really well. Sometimes you can do a scent transfer with them. There's a lot of things that can be done. And then there are other cats, and I think she's reading it really well. It's just like, well, I have to live with them. It is what it is. But whatever group of animals that you have, whether it's mixed, cats, dogs, etc., when they're getting along, take a minute and just say, you know what, you guys, it's so great that it's peaceful here. I love when you're getting along. We forget to do that because we're like, look, we're paying the bills. We're worried about taking them to the vet. But when you validate when they're doing something right, they're like kids and they're like, oh, that's nice. Mom's really happy.
That's good. That makes a lot of sense. If you joined us in progress, I'm talking to Lydia Hiby, an animal communicator who is world renowned and the author of a book called Conversation with Animals. And she has phone days on Tuesday and Wednesday. If you want to make a session, her website is lydiahiby.com, which I've posted. And she can talk to you about your pet. It doesn't have to be a critical thing like being sick, but it's a very, very fun thing to do. Florence says, my cat begs for spinach. Do you think he has some kind of deficiency? I think he's 3 or 4 years old. I wish people would beg for spinach.
Well, a little bit of spinach is fine as long as it doesn't have any salt. But yes, a lot of cats, that's why they will chew house plants. You can grow them some greens. You can give them some barley greens. But yeah, I mean, when you think of what a cat was bred to do or put on this earth to do is to eat mice that have eat vegetation and things like that. So yes, but just go easy with the spinach because sometimes that can put them on a toxicity side. Give them more, green grass and one of my cats used to love a little bit of broccoli. I gave him some of that. So yes. Mm-hmm.
Nice. Well, I'm a big fan of not breeding and rescuing pets in the shelter. Can you help people like pick the right pet for their personality and lifestyle?
Yeah, that's a great question too. I get, if people see something on Pet Finders or they've gone to a shelter or shelter website, yes, I can pick up from the animal right away. I can also ask them what kind of situations. I mean, they will tell me everything, honestly, like, well, okay, I dug holes in the backyard. That's why my folks didn't like me. Or I had a dog yesterday and the woman was able to validate it. It was her friend. She didn't tell me right away, but the dog said, well, I sat with my mom while she had a difficult pregnancy for 9 months. And then after the baby was born, it was great. And then mom couldn't handle me and the baby. Okay, no judgment. But the dog was sitting at the shelter going, what happened? What did I do wrong? I didn't do anything wrong. So, people's lives change. It happens sometimes.
Great. Angela says, this is my favorite interview. Thank you. I'm thinking of interviewing the other animal communicator that Lydia mentioned that specializes in grief, Teresa Wagner. And we actually have an animal communicator named Elizabeth Lee, who's watching today, who knows about Lydia's great work. So thank you for watching. And Janice loves this interview too. I've got to ask you one more question about Bailey. I forgot to ask you because we actually did have a reading recently. So I love to walk and there's lots of places to walk here. And there's some days, and it's not weather because it's easy to say when it's hot, but it could be a very nice day. She'll just go and go and go. And other days she just strikes. And I don't know why. Like she doesn't answer. I'm like, what's wrong? She doesn't say anything. How come some days she's just gung-ho? Same, I mean, I'm talking like in the morning where she hasn't walked, and other days she'll just take me for like 2 hours. You know, I'd like to just do a consistent hour every morning, if that's okay with you, Bailey.
Okay, so their first comment to me was, it really depends on what the rest of your day schedule is. If you just have nothing else to do, she said, then I really like going for a walk. But if you're like, we're going to be in an hour, she goes, well, today I wanted to go longer, so why bother? So that was our conversation about that.
Well, so I don't, I mean, she'll do that thing where like, you know, like she'll just lay down like they did. That's just, that's crazy. That's so amazing. So a lot of veterinarians do consult with you, don't they, when they have
I
difficulty?
feel very blessed about that. Yeah, even my original vet hospital where I moved here in California, and the 2 hospitals I worked for in New York, I really appreciate that, because I always say to people, I'm not a vet. I'm kind of in between. I can give you the information you need to go back to your vet. So I feel very, very blessed and humbled that a lot of them still refer me. I really do appreciate that.
You know, one time, something I learned in your class, it did work. It was, I used to be a pet sitter, and I was taking care of this lady. She had 3 cats. She lived actually on my block. And one of her cats, the older cat, Lovey, she wasn't eating. And I was starting to get really, really worried. And I took her to the vet, Dr. Pilch, who, you know, always says, what did Lydia say? My vet of many years. And I go, well, I didn't talk to Lydia, you know, there wasn't time. I said, but what I'm getting, she's showing me, literally the picture she was showing me was like, if you get a can of beans, like kidney beans, I was seeing, I go, I don't know. She's showing me like a can of kidney beans. The cat was in kidney failure. She was.
There you go.
And so like Dr. Pilch was like, whoa, you know, like, so, you know, people don't have to believe it, but they could try it and see. Because I've always been a big believer in this, especially because like you say, it's not like you're psychic in the way that like you're predicting what's going to happen on such and such a date. You're talking in pictures, just like somebody that's nonverbal would.
Absolutely, absolutely. And animals live in real time, right in the moment. They don't know the future. I mean, I can ask them, do they want to go to a horse show, or what, you know, the next agility thing, do they want to go? And sometimes they'll say, well, I'd like to do this. And they change their mind when they finally get there, but they don't know anything about the future. I don't know anything about the future.
Because if you can visualize, then you can talk to pets or animals. Like if I say,
even get a hunch. I mean, even get a hunch. Mm-hmm.
yeah, I always get it in music. It's weird. It always came to me in songs. So mine was very auditory more than anything else. Gosh, I miss those classes, especially because the last few Sinai would come with me and we would just have the best time. That, like, again, you know, living in LA, there wasn't much there, but you're not in LA anymore anyway, so it wouldn't have mattered. So.
Well, yeah, but I travel all over. I'm still bi-coastal, at least not right at the moment, but I have been.
Oh, here's
3 weeks ago.
Karen, I'm going to ask Lydia your question, but tell me where you live, because we also know some very good animal behaviorists. Karen says, my adopted dog is getting so aggressive. You might want to have a session with Lydia tomorrow or Wednesday, because she might be able to find out if, you know, if there's a physiological reason or a psychological reason. But both Lydia and I recommend this wonderful animal behaviorist who is in like the Norco upland area, but he'll travel up to an hour to get to you. His name is Rick Belmonte. He's amazing. So,
and he's taking my class also.
Yeah. And he was very good. He's like, well, he is a dog. That's the thing. He's just a giant dog. So so can you help people when their dogs are aggressive to get to the root cause, or to?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I've had a couple animals say, I'm protecting my mom, or I don't feel physically well. If an animal feels uncomfortable or ill, they get more defensive, because in the wild, it would either be fight or flight. So we can ask all those, or if I go around this one block with my mom, there's a couple of dogs that are going to go after us. There's all kinds of reasons for that. Yes, absolutely.
When you worked with Cesar, did you ever get to talk to his dog, Daddy?
Yeah, so thanks to you, when I met them at that one presentation, then he had me down to the center for a whole day. And that's where I met Tina Madden. I worked with all his trainers, and Daddy was the one who met me at the gate. And I talked to Junior and everything, and had Junior at the time. So I spent the whole day with him. And then there was a second time I went and spent time with them. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Wow, you're so lucky. Somebody asked if Cesar's still taking clients. I don't know, but I don't think so.
I don't know either. They would have to contact him directly.
Yeah, I know he's online. You could meet. Yeah, I honestly haven't talked. I actually haven't seen him since, you know, I think I'm going to contact him actually because maybe he'll do an interview with me. You never know. He might, just for old time's sakes. Chef AJ, would you mind putting all these specialists you've mentioned in the summary? Yes, absolutely. I do. So afterwards, you got to give me a little bit of time, but then this goes right on YouTube permanently. And I put the bio of my guests and the contact information. So I'm happy to do that. Okay. Kathy says, why does my dog guard her food and nip at my feet if I walk by when she's eating it? I've had her for 5 years. Well, I do the same thing if somebody tries to get my food. You can ask my friend Shada. She once took a French fry off my plate and I smacked her silly. So, and I'm not.
There are some dogs, depending upon what it was like as a puppy, that they would have to guard or protect their food. But even dogs in the wild, a lot of times would take a bite and run off, and then they want to ingest it. I mean, I don't approve of guarding, but that's a natural instinct to them. There are things you can do to work with them about it. You can't just tell them about it. And they're like, a lot of people have habits. It's like, why do you keep doing those? Why does someone roll their eyes unconsciously? So I'd have to ask the animal to know what it is, but. And then there are some dogs, like I had a couple of wolfhounds, that if I got too physically close to them, they were afraid someone was going to step on them. So they had a bubble around them. So that happens too.
Yeah. Michelle says, my dog knows when my husband is almost home and asks to go outside to wait on the porch. He comes home at different times. And I believe that, Michelle, because it was, I believe, Sparky 2 dogs ago that Charles would say, he would just start acting up and then I would be home within 5 minutes. How do they know?
Okay. So that's great. One of the analogies I use is someone's home all day on a normal weekend and stuff. And then Monday morning they have to get ready. And I'm going to use Fifi the poodle. So Fifi's like, oh, mom's acting in her normal. She's getting agitated. So she's getting all ready. Mom's getting all ready to go to work. She goes off to work and Fifi goes, okay, when is mom going to think about me? The first time mom thinks about her is at 10 o'clock. She's having her coffee break and she goes, oh, wow, I forgot to put the trash out. And the last time I forgot, Fifi went into the living room and she just pulled all the trash out. It was all over the living room. And Fifi goes, that's a great idea. You just sent that message home. Now you're at noon and you're like, oh man. And when I had the party, I left all the pillows, the good pillows out. And the last time I forgot that, Fifi went and ripped all the pillows apart. Now you sent that message home. Fifi's like, that's a great idea. And then at 5 o'clock, when you should have been home and you're stuck in traffic, you're like, oh man, I know she's just going to have to pee right by the front door. And Fifi goes, again, a great idea. And then you walk in and she's like, I got all your messages, but so we don't realize how we're broadcasting. So to go back to you, when you were heading home, or your animal's like, oh, I feel I'm getting home. I'm going to be there soon. And there was a book a couple of years ago in England where they did this scientific study, when the dog got excited and when the person, so it's been already documented. So that quickly you can send a message in less than a second.
That's it. And they've had I don't remember the lady's name, and I was hoping it would have been you, but they've had television shows with animal psychics. So it's not like it's this like new weird thing.
Yeah. Yes.
With animal communicators. Jill says,
I was on 48 Hours years ago. I was the first one that they ever did was on 48 Hours.
Wow.
So.
Did police ever called you for like crime stuff?
I've done some of it, but like when Sylvia Browne was alive, that's really hard for me because I get to the emotional side of it. I only do that occasionally. So, but yeah.
It's interesting that you mentioned Sylvia Browne because we just pulled out an old book where she predicted this coronavirus that was going to happen in 2020. And she didn't call it that, but she said there was going to be a big pandemic in 2020 in a book she wrote many years ago, and she's passed away. She says that when we die, all our animals are there. Like it does, like even if we know each other. So are they there with our human people? I mean, because I'd be happy just to be reunited with all my pets.
I love that you're asking this because I've never had a doubt that my animals are going to be there. I had a very good friend in high school who, was in a car accident, and she said to me, and I believed right away. She goes, "Oh, I was hovering over the table and, deciding whether she saw someone shocking her. And when she finally got back into her body, she said, I realized that I kept seeing this orange tabby cat." She asked her grandmother and she goes, "Yeah." And she opened a photo book. And when she was a child, and she would say to her grandmother's older cat, Orange Tabby, used to sleep right next to her. And she said, I didn't even know about that. But recently I was out doing a horse group a couple of weeks ago, and this little black pug comes up to me, puts his little paws on me. And the owner reminded me like, oh, you said that this pug is going to be here. He's come back to be with you. So his name was Toby. And he said, Lydia, I have a present for you. And I looked at the owner and verbalized that. And she goes, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know I was supposed to bring you a gift this time. And he looked at me like, no, I have a mental picture for you. He said, close your eyes. So I closed my eyes. And the first thing I saw was all thousands of dogs running in this huge field with lots of green grass, and they were playing. And I opened my eyes and he said, that's what dog heaven looks like. I'm getting chills telling you it again. And then people who were horse people going, well, where are the horses? And he goes, close your eyes again. And I did. And all of a sudden I saw this big, huge fence running all alongside the dog park and thousands of horses running in huge green grass. So I opened my eyes, I started crying, and Toby said, God's not stupid. He wouldn't want the horses to run on the dogs. So he put a fence all the way down through heaven so they couldn't hurt each other. That just blew my mind. I mean, that was totally unsolicited. And if I ever get the next book going, that's going to be a major chapter because that was volunteered to me. I didn't even ask him. So I've had a lot of clients say to me, okay, well, you know, this animal's due to be crossing over. And somebody always comes over to greet them on the Rainbow Bridge. When your pet's ready to go, even if it was an accident or it was a pre-surgery thing, someone comes over and says, I'm going to be here for you. And then they would bring their humans along with them. So as far as I'm concerned, and I've talked to my pastor who agrees with my work and everything, Pastor Hayford, he's like, of course there's one heaven. He said, I believe that. I can't imagine if they're given by God when they were. And so hopefully it doesn't offend anybody. But that's what I believe. And that's what I've been told.
I love that once a year they have the blessing of the animals at all the Unity and religious science churches. I think that's the coolest thing. So Julie says that Dino the dog has been horribly depressed since his beloved canine companion Jessie passed. I hope it would lift, but it's been 6 months. How do we help our pets over the loss of maybe a human loved one or another pet loved one? Would these Bach flower remedies help or?
Yeah, that's a great question. I always tell people to get Rescue Remedy. That's one of the Bach flowers. And that has 4 different flowers essences. They can get that online now at Amazon. They can go to Whole Foods if they happen to be out and about, but that will help with it. But also there are some animals that are then ready to accept another animal. So that would be a conversation. And if the owner is like, well, I had one gal yesterday and she goes, I really don't want another animal. So maybe I can ask that dog, what else would make him happy? Maybe going to do pet therapy when the time comes. Or maybe the mom can say, well, I want you to do therapy on me and make them feel like they're involved in that. But yes, that happens a lot. People didn't think that animals had that kind of grief, but they can grieve for a long time about another pet or a person.
Yeah, I believe it. Louise says, every night my pup goes and digs in my closet until I get her out of there. Is she actually digging for something or is this just an odd behavior? Bailey digs at night too. Like it's almost like she's trying to find a place to nestle.
Well, all dogs like to den. It depends on where they can go. Some of them go under the bed, some go in a closet, some go in their crate. I mean, my dogs were some show dogs and rescues. Towards the end of their life, the crates were always open so they could come and go. That's their den. So it's instinctual for them to feel safe and they usually want their back up against something, against a wall of a closet or a coffee table or under a bed. And then there are the other ones that are happy to sit on your couch, but they're still having their back to something. So that's an instinctual thing. Just like cats have 3 levels. Some of them only want to be on the ground floor. Some want to be only on the counter. Some of them only want to be up on top. They'll pick their spot. And horses do the same thing. Some of them want to be in a corner of a stall or they want to be in a corner outside with their friends. They instinctually go to that place. So that's what they're doing.
Why do they live such short lives? I mean, obviously there's certain animals, tortoises and birds that live as longer than humans, but for the most part, our domesticated pets, they don't live very long. Is there anything we can do to, we work so hard on humans with the blue zones to eat right, to increase human longevity, which is constantly increasing. People used to be dead in the Stone Age in their 20s and 30s and then 40s. People now it's, 60s, 70s, 80s. Is there anything we can do to increase our pets' longevity? Because it's just not fair that they don't live very long.
Well, that's interesting too. When I graduated out of college in 1978, the first hospital I worked at in Staten Island, we saw dogs, 19, cats, 25, coming through the door like they were living large at 3 and 4. So I really thought about that. A lot of it has to do with the environment. Not that that's the only reason. A lot more stress. And as much as we, like you said, have improved on medicine and homeopathy and nutrition, there's still other forces at work. And energetically, there's so much going on, so much transmission. That's, I think, what's also affecting them too. So great question.
Well, so on that note, Michelle wants to know if pets reincarnate. And then Jill says, do dogs come back to you? I'm convinced my Charlie is the reincarnation of a previous pet.
Okay, so I love this question. Again, I'm very much a Christian, but I do have a lot of animals that do come back and say they do. So, leave it up to people. I've had several of my animals come back to me. I knew who they were. And so when someone feels that, if that's what your inclination is, you can one time say the other animal's name. Let's say, for example, the dog now is Charlie and you're thinking it's Bo. So you don't have to have direct eye contact with them, but if they're just sitting with you, just say, were you Bo? And if they swivel around and look at you once, and the hair goes back on the back of your neck, and you get a one-time confirmation. And I've had people do that and go, well, that was so weird, and they didn't do it another time, and yet the last lifetime they were very gentle, and this time they're very boisterous. I'm like, well, every lifetime is a learning thing. Me personally, I know I've been an animal other times. I know I've lived other places. I've just had that knowing, and that's kind of what I walk in my truth. And so each lifetime is a learning thing. So you can't compare the two, but every animal, if they want to come back, they will. It's up to them. And they usually find you. It's usually very synchronous. It's like puzzle pieces coming together. When the internet became like 10 or 15 years ago, I had people call me up going, I just saw this horse online in Oklahoma. I live in California. Why am I drawn to them? It's because that's how you happen to connect. Or you finally meet somebody and you have 3 hours and you're telling them your life story and you're thinking, why would I do that? Somehow I think your lives intersected. And the only other thing I can correlate it to, in Lake Elsinore in California, that little small town, they did a whole study and it seems like the whole town was from a whole nother lifetime. They hypnotized people, if you believe in Edgar Cayce and stuff like that. There's a gentleman who has a whole book cataloged about where they all came back at the same time. So I really feel like our tribes come back together, and that includes the animals. That's my personal thought about it.
Well, I don't know how people live a life without pets, because even if you're allergic, like even my niece who has asthma can have rats, she can have fish, because especially now when we're sheltering in place and people that live alone, without another human, I can't imagine going through life without a pet. It's just for mental health purposes or just love purposes.
Well, there are a lot of people that, now they're doing it a foster thing, and they've said to me, well, I don't think I could give them enough attention. I understand that. And I have a couple of friends that are that way, and they're like, well, I go and love on my friend's pet. So they still get that interaction, but everybody's journey is different. And maybe there are some people that do better with human interaction. And there are a lot of animal people like you and I are like, well, we'd rather hang out our pets than people sometimes, So there's got to be some people that just love people. They can't all love animals, but yeah. And there's also that emotional, like I always say, every pet comes with a pink slip. When you have to finally write that last little bit and you have to let it go, there are a lot of people that have said to me, I can't do it anymore. I can't do it anymore. So
yeah, I get it. Is there a way to say to our pet, before they make the transition, or even the ones that have passed away, to say, come back? Can I get can I get Scooby, Lucky, Snoopy, Ginger, Sparky? Will they come, or they just,
you can invite them, and what they may say to me is, well, you have Bailey now, and out of respect for her, because she's walking with you at this time, we're going to respectfully stay back. Or maybe later on they'll say, well, now she's getting a little older, to help you over that threshold, I'll start to come up now. Or they may have talked to Bailey, who goes, you are not coming back until I'm gone.
It sounds like
I don't want to raise you, take care of you. I had one dog yesterday, like, oh no, we're a one dog household. It's not happening. That's not happening.
Yeah. Diane says, when my husband died, I wouldn't have gotten out of beds except for my dogs. So I've kept Lydia so long. If you guys, I couldn't get to everybody's question, but some of these are very unique. So you probably would need to have a reading with her, and I've posted her website. But I'll end with this question from Sandy, because I find it very interesting. Is it possible a dog would choose to die and go with their beloved owner after she died? I had a Chihuahua that chose my mom as her favorite person. She died in 2018 and he died in 2019 at only 11 years.
Yeah, that's such a poignant question. Yes, there are a lot of animals that say to me, like, not unlike couples or people that have been together, like, okay, well, my mom or dad is on the other side, I'm ready to go. And they'll actually shut their systems down or create an illness so that they would go. Then there are other ones that were just at the brink of that, and they got rescued by someone. They went, well, hey, I'm turning myself back on. I've got a free pass for a while. This is great. So, not to make light of a serious thing, but yes, there are a lot of pets that would just rather be with their folks on the other side when they're done. So thank you for the question.
Yeah, my grandparents were married almost 66 years. And when my grandmother died, my grandfather just almost died immediately, even though there was really nothing wrong with him. Like, it was just
broken heart. There's such a thing as a broken heart.
Yeah, yeah. I have actually interviewed a cardiologist, Dr. Batiste, who hopefully I'll get again live, who basically said that. Leslie says, I booked a session for my daughter. Terrific. I hope you really enjoy it. Julie says, I'm calling tomorrow for an appointment. What a great show. Well, thank you guys for watching. I know there's going to be some people who, because they see me as an educator in plant-based, are going to think I'm totally off my rocker having some of these guests, but I don't care because I'm 60. And once you're 60, you don't really care what people think about you, especially if you're in Aries. You know, this is me. And if this doesn't interest you, you don't have to watch this one, because I've had a Reiki person on now. I've had the lady that married me who teaches certain spiritual principles, because it gets a little tiring just talking about kale and broccoli every single day. And so we want to distract people from what's going on in the world just for an hour or so a day, and and connect with them. And please, have a pet, love them so much. Here where I live, it's a different culture where people do not treat pets the way that I'm used to. It's very sad, and I don't really want to talk about it. But is there anything I can do to help those animals, though, that are not being loved, that are being chained and left outside in 120 degrees? And we don't have animal control here. We just don't.
Anytime I see, someone even asked me about the, seeing a loose animal on a freeway. Sometimes all you can do is just send them love, and just, as much as it's tough for us to see them go through that journey, there's a reason. We just don't know a lot of what those reasons are. So I just try to send a lot of love.
How do you do that, though? Like, do you mentally, because we all need to do that now with the whole world. So how do you send love energy?
You just put your hands on your heart center and make a statement like, I am sending you love and energy. And sometimes you'll see them turn around and go, who was that? And I try to greet everybody with that kind of energy. The other day, people are overwrought with everything, and went to the grocery store, and the gal behind the counter was just exhausted. And I just got quiet, and I just said to myself, I'm sending you love. And she goes, God, I feel so much better since you stood in front of me. And I said, thank you for being on the front line. I mean, we say that, but do we really feel it? And are we really present? That's the other thing about animals. They're like, I want you to be in the moment, not thinking about the past and not what's the future is. Be here with me in the moment. That's the big takeaway.
Yeah. Well, you know why they can be in the moment is because they don't have iPhones. Did you see that movie, Secret Life of Pets?
Oh, yes. Yes.
It was hilarious. I mean, because I always, not like I say, I work at home now, but how she went to work, and it's like, I always used to feel guilty when I worked outside the home that they were literally doing what he showed in that movie, where they were staying by the door, freaking out the whole time, the whole 10 hours you were gone.
No, there are some pets that will do that because the owner is thinking of them doing that. But every time I walk out the door, and that kind of brings up the other thing about they don't understand time, is you just say, I'll be back soon, take a nap. Or if you just happen to go out and get the mail and come back, what do most dogs do? Oh, you left, I have to get excited. But a real good owner or a good pack leader should be able to get up, walk out, and the dog goes, okay, and then come home with the same kind of calm energy. But we don't do that in a normal situation. We feel guilty, and that's an energy that animals don't understand. I've had so many animals go, why is she so worried about me being at home? I don't get it. So if you can just get up and just say, gotta go to work, you want your cookies, or I'm going to get the mail and I'll be back soon, they should be like, okay. And when you walk through the door, if they go, oh, you're back, then you know you're doing a good job.
Oh, that's fantastic. Jill says, we Aries girl have to be true to our truth. Absolutely. Well, I have had the most fun talking to you and reconnecting. It's been probably over a year and a half since I've talked to you since I moved. So it's really great seeing you again. And I wish you luck in Florida. And if you ever get to the Palm Springs area, I'll be happy to.
I'll be back.
Class for you, and you guys can do the same. She will travel if you get a large enough group, and she'll teach you or just do a bunch of readings. So go to lydiahiby.com if you're interested in booking a reading, and also check out her book on Amazon, and also go to page 178 and you'll see me mentioned. So thank you so much, Lydia. This was so much.
Love you. Have my niece for me.
I sure will. Take care, everybody. And I'll see you tomorrow at 3 o'clock with Dr. Rick Dina. Bye-bye.